Is there a narcissist in your life? What narcissistic personality disorder actually is, how to spot it, and what to do when you're dealing with it. Have you ever had someone in your life who always knew best? Who took credit for every win, couldn't handle even the mildest criticism, and somehow made every room feel smaller the moment they walked in? Maybe it was a coworker, maybe a manager, maybe someone at the family dinner table you've been trying to figure out for years. If any of that sounds familiar, you've probably asked yourself at some point, is it me? Am I being too sensitive? Or is there actually something going on with this person? Today we're going to talk about exactly that. What narcissistic personality disorder really is, how to recognize it, and most importantly, what you can actually do when you're surrounded by it. Let's get into it. Where does the word narcissism even come from? Before we get into the psychology, let's go back to where this whole concept started, because it's actually a pretty fascinating story. In Greek mythology, there's a young man named Narcissus. One day he leans over a river and catches his own reflection in the water. And he's so completely captivated by what he sees that he can't bring himself to leave. He stops eating, stops sleeping, and spends his days just staring at himself. Eventually, it kills him. And where he fell, Narcissus flowers bloom. Modern psychology borrowed his name to describe something very real. A person so consumed by self-admiration that their entire relationship with the world, and with themselves, becomes distorted. Now, here's something important to say up front. A healthy level of self-love and confidence isn't narcissism. Those things are actually good for you. They help you set goals, build relationships, handle setbacks. The problem starts when that self-regard crosses into something that has no limits and no room for anyone else. In narcissism, a person doesn't just love themselves more than others. They genuinely stop seeing others as fully real. Everyone else is either useful or irrelevant. So what actually is narcissistic personality disorder? In clinical psychology, narcissistic personality disorder, NPD for short, is defined as a persistent pattern of grandiosity, a deep need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for other people. And it's not just a big ego. It's a recognized personality disorder that shapes how someone thinks, feels, and behaves across every area of their life. Where does it come from? There's no single answer. Genetics play a role. So does early childhood, being excessively praised, or on the flip side, being harshly criticized. Family dynamics, social environment, trauma. It's usually a combination of factors, and the patterns start forming very early in life. 3 types worth knowing about. The covert type is the quieter version. This person's grandiosity stays mostly internal. They might not cause obvious drama, and can actually be quite creative and driven when working alone. But put them in a team setting, and the friction starts almost immediately. The aggressive type is what most people picture when they hear narcissist. When they don't get the attention or admiration they feel they deserve, they go on the offensive. They can look like natural leaders at first glance, confident, commanding. But the actual skills of leadership, listening, building trust, bringing people together, those simply aren't there. The passive-aggressive type operates through indifference. They don't engage, don't react, appear completely detached. But underneath that detachment is the same core belief. I'm above all of this. None of you are worth my energy. How do you actually spot one? Okay, let's get out of the theory and into real life. What does this actually look like? They show zero genuine interest in other people's feelings or perspectives. Empathy, in the truest sense, is simply not part of how they operate. They believe they're superior in essentially every situation. They are not here to learn from you. They already know everything they need to know. They quietly resent anyone who doesn't look up to them. And they'll put people down without hesitation, often disguised as a joke or a casual observation. In a work context, they cannot tolerate anyone above them who they didn't choose to be there. Rules are valid if they made them. Everyone else's rules are wrong by definition. And the thing that gives them away faster than almost anything else? They cannot handle criticism. Even the gentlest, most constructive feedback lands as a personal attack. There's no shame response, no self-doubt, no moment of maybe they have a point. Instead, the criticism gets flipped. Suddenly, you're the one with the problem. You're jealous, you're threatened, you're projecting. What can you actually do? This is the part that matters most. Because here's the hard truth. Narcissistic personality disorder doesn't have a cure. There's no conversation you can have, no argument you can win, no amount of patience that will fundamentally change this person. So trying to fix them is almost always a losing game. What you can do is protect yourself. And there are a few concrete ways to do that. Set clear boundaries and hold them. This is the single most important thing. Narcissists are highly attuned to where the edges are, and they will fill any space you leave open. If your role, your responsibilities, and your limits are clearly defined, there's less room for them to move into. If they do overstep, don't take the bait and argue. Close the conversation quickly and go back to your work. Engaging in a debate is entering their territory, and on their territory, they're always going to win. If it keeps happening, bring it to a manager or HR. At that point, it stops being a personal conflict and becomes an organizational one. The key insight is this: if they can't use you to feed their ego, they'll lose interest. But if your boundaries are soft, their reach will keep expanding until it becomes unbearable. Don't criticize directly. This sounds counterintuitive, but it matters. Direct criticism, even when you're completely right, will not produce the result you're hoping for. It will be experienced as an attack on their identity, and they will respond accordingly, by deflecting, distorting, and ultimately turning it back on you. Instead of criticism, frame things as information. Not, "you did this wrong," but "here's what the data shows," or "here's what the situation seems to need." It's a subtle shift, but it removes the personal dimension that triggers the defensive response. And don't expect logic to win. Presenting a clear, rational argument won't make them admit fault. They are exceptionally good at believing only what they want to believe. Pushing harder just adds to the resentment they're already storing up. Don't try to change them. This is perhaps the hardest one to accept. But forcing behavioral change on a narcissist doesn't just fail. It tends to make things significantly worse. What you're threatening is their entire self-concept. The resistance goes up, the conflict escalates, and in a workplace setting, this is often when things tip into genuine harassment or bullying. Your energy is far better spent managing your own position than trying to reshape theirs. Go easy on the compliments, too. This one surprises people, but praise and admiration are essentially fuel for narcissists. Every compliment confirms what they already believe about themselves, that they're exceptional, that they're right, that you see it too. And the more you feed that, the more they'll want from you. A neutral, professional tone in your interactions is genuinely protective over the long run. Not cold, not hostile, just measured. Final thoughts. Narcissistic personality disorder is real, it's serious, and the chances of having someone like this in your life at some point are honestly pretty high. At work, in family dynamics, in relationships. But there are two things worth holding on to from this video. First, you can't change them. What you can do is understand what you're dealing with, protect your own boundaries, and stop wasting energy on battles that aren't winnable. Second, don't confuse narcissism with healthy self-esteem. Loving yourself, believing in yourself, having confidence. Those are good things. What separates narcissism is the complete erasure of everyone else. A healthy person sees both themselves and the people around them. A narcissist only sees themselves. If you recognized someone in this video, whether it's a colleague, a family member, or even a pattern in yourself, that recognition is already something. It's the starting point. And if you're in a situation that's genuinely affecting your well-being, please consider talking to a therapist or counselor. This is exactly the kind of thing they're trained to help with. Take care of yourself. See you in the next one.